Welcome to Mimi's Sketchbook. Today we are going to draw these beautiful spring daffodils. Now this video is actually part 2 of how to draw a daffodil. The first video is the anatomy of a daffodil and how to draw it in many different angles. So if you haven't seen that yet, here's the link to it and take a look at anatomy of a daffodil before you start this one. Okay, let's get going. So to start with, I took a photo of one clump of daffodils, and in it has all the daffodils facing in a lot of different directions. So I blew it up. It's a nice large size, and I can see a lot of detail on this to help me draw accurately. I have my reference, and I have a real daffodil to use and turn it in whatever direction I need. Okay, to start off, I'm going to think about the opening of the trumpet and the shape that I see and what direction that it's tipped in. Now if I look at a trumpet straight on, it's a circle, but when it begins to tip, it's an oval. So the trumpet opening is an oval, and where it connects with the petals, it's also an oval, the same oval but a little bit smaller. I want to establish the diameter, the center axis, and the diameter of that oval. That helps me see the direction and the placement. So that's my diameter of the oval, and I'm going to repeat this again and again. This is the basic formula for drawing a daffodil, and I will repeat it with every daffodil. So the bottom of the daffodil, this left side of the daffodil I'll see, and to draw the petals now, I'm going to extend this diameter to the width of the petal circle, and I want to copy or imitate the same shape as the opening of the trumpet, except bigger. Well, now that I've got the first daffodil finished, I'm going to draw the rest of them following that same formula. Drawing the opening of the trumpet, putting in the axis, the diameter, and repeating that same shape for the petals. It's just a formula you're going to do again and again. Now when I get to this last flower, I'm looking at it from the back. I see the back of the flower, which is a really interesting view that I enjoy drawing. And I see that the bottom of the flower is shaped like a cone, and the cone attaches to the stem. So I want to do my formula, put in the oval, put in the center axis, and draw my flower the same way as I did looking at it from the front. And you can see I'm putting the stem in and drawing it right from that center axis. I'm going to start to put in the petals, and it's important for me to think of this oval shape, even though it's an oval, to think of it as a clock. And I'm looking at the petals and determining where they lie on this clock. And this one's at 6, one's at about 8 o'clock, one's at about 11 o'clock, another's at 12. And so I want to think in that terms to help me get my petals placed correctly. Then I'm going to begin to lay in the petals, and always start at that center axis when you draw. You're going to imagine them starting, they're emerging from the center axis and going out to their furthest point. So always when you draw, think about the placement first as if they're on a clock. Then you're going to draw them in from the inner point at the center axis to the outer point of the large ring that you drew, the large oval that you drew for their placement. So you're going to do that with each petal. And remember, as I told you in the first video of the anatomy of a daffodil, there's 3 upper petals and 3 lower petals. So you always want to make sure that you have them distinguished. It makes a big difference in the shading and in the anatomy. You should just have it correct. So as I'm drawing, I'm keeping my eyes on my reference the whole time. That is the best thing you can do, is keep your eye on your reference. Take your time. Always go back to that center axis. And I'm also looking to see relationships. Where does this one line connect to another form? Like, where does this petal come out from the top of the ruffle or the side of the trumpet? Where is it? Start from there. Using all these different points, you're going to get this correct. You're going to get it correct using the hands of the clock as one help. The center axis is another great help, and the relationship of one piece of this flower to another is another great help. So keep using all of these things to help you get it accurate. And the more and more you do it, the more you'll see the relationships, and it will just be a great help to you to get it accurate and to make your flowers look realistic. Set your reference up so that it's easy for you to see. You can almost see the drawing that you're doing and the reference at the same time. Another thing is draw lightly. Keep your pencil line as light as you can. And after you've got your petals placed in, erase the diagram that you drew so you're not confused. There's too many lines on there, you're going to begin to get confused. So draw in your lines lightly, and then go back and emphasize certain ones to make it clearer to yourself where they are and what they're connected to. Now that I'm done putting in the details, I'm going to draw over them with a marker. Now I'm just using a Sharpie Extra Fine Point. There's a lot of different markers you can use out there that are excellent, but this, I'm using a very, very light hand. I'm barely touching the paper. I'm not gripping the pen. I'm just loosely holding it in my hand, and it becomes a very nice light line. It isn't overwhelming. So once that's done and it's all cleaned up, I'm going to start to put in my stems. And I'm always thinking of starting from the center axis and following it down. So that is just the formula. Start at the center axis and follow it down. And you want to come up with a pleasant arrangement for your stems. Now what I'm doing here is putting in the leaves, and the leaves are these long, graceful lines. And it is so much easier to draw a long, graceful line if you turn the paper in the direction that your hand naturally flows. So I turn mine so I can just make it one quick, long stroke. And it's usually so much more graceful than if I try to stop and make tiny little lines into these graceful waving leaves. So play with it. Play with turning your paper and drawing long, graceful lines. Now we're going to start to think about our light source. And when I took this picture, it was noon-ish, and the light source was right overhead. And so that gives me a lot of information about where I am going to place the darker values or the shading on each of these daffodils. Now, a daffodil is a very complex object with a lot of parts to it. So I am going to heavily rely on my reference. And because the daffodil is very light values of yellows and greens, it's not all that easy to see where the darker values are. It's very light. It's all in the light ranges. So I have to look very carefully at my reference to see right where the value should be. But one thing that I know for sure is that if I want to create an object and make it look three-dimensional, I need to create contrast when one shape overlaps another. So with this petal right here, it's overlapping by another petal. I need to see where the darker value is. So I have to look at my reference, and I always say to myself, which is darker, which is lighter, this one or this one? And make a comparison if it's hard to see. There always has to be a contrast between two objects or it becomes flat. The trumpet need a tiny shadow there. You see how they immediately become more dimensional. The side of the trumpet needs a bit of shading to create the roundness of the cylinder under the ruffles, because the ruffles stand out. Even under the petal. When one petal overlaps another, you need the shadow. And the whole flower is overlapping the stem. So there is a dark shadow that is cast on the stem. So once again, each part that overlaps another part needs contrast. So this little petal in the back needed contrast. Look very carefully at your reference when you're doing the interior of a cylinder, because that's tricky, but you can do it if you just use your reference as a guide. This petal is cast in shadow, so it's darker. Stems need shading too. And the inside of your trumpet needs some shading. So do you see the different values in this, just in the center of that trumpet? It goes from dark to light. So you can create different levels of shading with your pencil. You're putting layers of pencil on top of each other. I'm not pressing hard at any point. I'm not pressing hard. It's just light layers of value on top of each other to get it to the depth that you need it. And if it's too dark, hey, take your eraser and just gently lighten it up. Adding shading is like a give and take. You add a little bit, you take a little bit away. You want to compare one area that's overlapping another. And you want to give definition to your stems too. They're a very interesting arrangement of shapes. So they're going to need shading also, and they need to distinguish themselves from each other. So once I've got my stems and flowers shaded in, I'm going to go back with my marker and just create the darkest darks that I couldn't get with my pencil. It really creates great depth just with that little bit of extra darkness. Adding a few last minute shades, and now we're ready to paint. And I'm using my Koi Watercolor Field set, which I like a lot. And it has quite a few yellows in it for me to choose from. Lots of yellows and lots of greens. So I'm going to experiment a little bit on another sheet of paper, and you should do that too. And then go in and fill in these flowers. I'm going to start with the lighter color, just a real pale yellow, and then start to build up the colors. Once again, I'm using a nice mixed media paper so that it can handle the paint. You can't really get a great result if you're not using good paper. Sketching paper won't handle watercolor well or work. This is 90-pound Canson watercolor paper, or mixed media paper, and you're going to want to use at least that, or a nice heavy-duty watercolor paper, which is about 150 40 pounds. So make sure you get good paper when you're putting all this time and effort into your drawings. So using my reference again and looking carefully at the colors and the shading on here. And I'm painting right over that pencil shading. This is a technique that goes way back to the old masters when they would create a drawing. Under their painting, it would be a drawing, and then they would paint over it with transparent layers of color. And so you still have to think about the paint you're putting on there and the colors and the depth of color, but the shading that's underneath gives a really beautiful look and realistic look to your painting. Especially with the daffodils, which are so delicate and they are difficult to paint. So this underdrawing is a real help with daffodils. So now I'm adding just a few last minute details to create a greater sense of depth. More contrast creates greater depth. And I really enjoy working with this watercolor set, this koi watercolor set, so there's a link below. If you are interested in getting it, it's not a bad price, and it's a lot of fun to have all those colors. Also, you can subscribe to this channel here on YouTube, or you can go to mimisketchbook.com and subscribe to that and get notified of my next video when that's posted. So thank you for coming and joining me at Mimi Sketchbook, and I hope you give it a try. It's so much fun. It might take a few times. Hey, I've been painting my entire life, so if this is new to you, don't give up. Keep drawing. You can do it. Come back again. Bye.